everybody. Welcome to Geek Out for May 2018. We did miss April, and I apologize for that. We were very caught up with AWS Summit, which we're going to recap today and show some of our cloud data services, go through some of our demos, both recorded and live. We have a lot of content, so I'm going to dive straight into it. Our guest geek today is Darren Ferris, aka Snuffy. Darren, who are you? What do you do? What are you doing here? And why are you called Snuffy?
Well, all good questions, I guess. Who am I? I've been around IT for a while now and helping our customers with better outcomes all the way from virtualization up to the platform integration stuff that we're doing today. So that's me. The nickname Snuffy, it's not very exciting. It's just my last name, Shafirius. People used to call me Snuffleupagus, and I ended up with Snuffy. So I wear it with pride, and yeah, that's pretty much me.
Yeah, so Snuffy, you've been at our Insight conference a couple of times with your customers up on stage, talking about some of the really cool stuff that we do in the cloud, next to the cloud, and around the cloud. So yeah, he's a very, very well-versed in our portfolio, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's the agenda. We're going to go. Darren Snuffy was at AWS Summit with me last month, and we'll just chat about what we did there, what we talked about, how it was. We'll go through. I've listed a couple of our the NetApp portfolio around the cloud, so Cloud Central, ONTAP Cloud, Cloud Volumes, and Cloud Sync, and SaaS Backup. If you've got questions at any time during this, drop them into the chat. We'll go through them at, either at the end or during, depending on how much time we've got. And we also have some gift vouchers. Like always, we have things to give away. So we have JB Hi-Fi vouchers for questions that come through. And this session's also being recorded, so if you do miss anything, because we're running through it at a rapid pace, don't worry. The summary will come out, and the session recording will also be sent to you. So Cloud Central, what is Cloud Central, Snuffy, and what do we do? Actually, Summit. Oh goodness, I am way ahead of myself today. So AWS Summit, what did we do there? How was it?
Look, Summit, I've been lucky enough that it was my third Summit. I think this time, with the conversations and the demos we were showing on the booth, that we started to get a lot, I don't want to say in a negative way, but we certainly had more informed customers, I thought. I thought that, 3 years ago, customers didn't even know they had data in the cloud. 2 years ago, they knew it was there because it was costing them money, and now it's about how do I leverage the most from that data, how do I secure it, how do I do things like machine learning or AI or those type of things. So I think that's what I heard and what I saw, and they were just really good conversations.
Yeah, were there any, conversations, you mentioned AI and machine learning, was there anything there that you're particularly interested in?
I love the idea of having, autonomous vehicles and that sort of stuff performing dangerous or very difficult things for humans, right? So I love the idea of, having a autonomous drone to go and, kill crown of thorn starfish and those type of things. Like, I think that's really, really cool. And I think that those environments now are accessible to most businesses where they haven't been in the past. So I think those type of things where, automating stuff that's either dangerous to humans or is just too difficult for us to do, I think they're the perfect tasks for AI and ML.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I know some of the keynote sessions at AWS Summit covered AI and machine learning and deep learning. Definitely something that we're interested in here, and if you are as well, please do reach out. I'm curious to see what the rest of our community is thinking around that area, and definitely some of the things that NetApp are doing in that space are super cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into our Cloud Central. What is NetApp Cloud Central? Why why should people care?
I think, so Cloud Central, and we were talking about this earlier, is really NetApp's version of a marketplace. You know, it's where we go to, or it's where our customers go to consume some of our cloud-native services. And they're things like Cloud ONTAP, and we'll cover these things up as well, but really that's where we go as a portal or a marketplace into our cloud services. So there's a lot of information there about what we do, what problems we're solving, how we help customers, and all that sort of stuff. So that's my take on Cloud Central anyhow.
Yeah, you said like cloud native. To you, what is NetApp? How is cloud native different to what NetApp has done or has been doing and is doing, which isn't cloud native?
I think the thing is we've always had this concept, when we talk about the data fabric, we have this concept of, you know, on-prem, close to the cloud, in the cloud sort of thing. And one of the things that I'm trying to do from a platforms architecture perspective is stick all those together. So, you know, the point of cloud native are those services that run wholly in the cloud. You know, they are ONTAP instances that are running within, you know, AWS or within Azure. They are services that are, as the name suggests, native, where in the past, maybe some of NetApp private storage that's sitting beside the cloud, or if we're doing things, you know, on-premise and then snapping in or whatever, you know. So that's these services we're talking about today are those cloud-native services.
Awesome. And they're my favorite ones, by the way, guys. So if you're interested in them, please, yeah, let's talk about that. So this is, well, this is not. This is one of the pages in Cloud Central. This is Cloud Central. We were just going to go in and have a look around. Like we said, it's kind of a marketplace, hey?
Yeah, it really is. And the thing is, and look, Phoebe will log in and do whatever, but I think it's that information, right? So, you know, people want to know if they're going to use our services, what benefits they're going to get, and why they would want to do it, and I guess what the value is. And what we'll do is we'll jump in and have a look, but if we focus in on Cloud ONTAP as an example, or ONTAP Cloud, depending on how you want to say it, we can actually start to see things like calculators and different architectures and, you know, what we're actually doing. Phoebe is showing what we call a working environment at the moment. And this demonstrates an environment that could be on-prem, and then in AWS, we've got our different volumes, and it's a very graphical way of being able to do some of the more difficult tasks that we might have had in the past, right? So it makes it really simple to say, I've got a volume here, I've got a volume there, I want to be able to replicate those. So simple backup tasks, but on top of that, we're extending all the goodness of ONTAP into the cloud, so all the cloning, all the wonderful data management stuff that we've come to know and love, it's all there. So we can see here that replication there, we've got a one-way replication between one to the other, and it is really, really simple as we go through and, you know, create these relationships. So
I guess for you and your experience, you know, you've worked with NetApp customers for a really long time. What does something like Cloud Manager do for them that changes the way that they're going to work now that we're talking about cloud native solutions? Like, how is it different for them?
I think the thing is it's about automating a lot of the low-value activities, and I think that's the real trick here is that, you know, it's a GUI that allows us to do a whole bunch of things that were quite time consuming in the past, and now with the way that, you know, everything's API driven, everything's automated, everything's a click, it makes it very, very, very simple. So what that really does then is frees those people up to focus on, you know, higher value activities and generating new business and finding new ways to do things. And I think the other thing too is once you're there and you have access to all these APIs and you can start cloning environments and doing all those type of things, I think that, you know, our development cycles will be much faster. They'll be able to do things that, you know, in that cloud scale piece, you know, consume some of the cloud platform as a service offerings and all that sort of stuff. So for me, Cloud Manager is the easy way for our customers to get into the cloud and then start to consume all those, you know, platforms that are available.
Yeah, so we're using Cloud Manager. I guess this is what I've got here is an AWS instance and an on-premise one. If they did replicate from on-prem into AWS, they could then use AWS services, AWS tools to then operate against that data, build their applications against that data, and they could keep that replication going, or they could use it for disaster recovery, backup, I guess.
I think that's really our value, right? I think when we look at this is that, the clouds for us are new vendors, right? And we've always had different technology vendors. And the real trick is how do I use those vendors most efficiently? And if I could have data that I push up to one because they do something better than the other or the next, Cloud Manager really sticks all that together and helps me leverage all those different vendors. If I have, some Cloud ONTAP sitting in AWS or Azure or Google and I have Cloud Volumes, what I'm really talking about there is an ecosystem where I can just start to use things as my business wants to, right?
Yeah, like we've got Azure up here on this one, so you could basically have exactly the same environment running, or the same management tool running against Azure, against AWS, against your on-premise stuff, and you mentioned Cloud Volumes, which we'll jump into in a minute. I guess that's pretty cool, and that definitely helps us simplify.
I think the other thing on that too is the cloud vendors are adding new features at such a rate that it gives you that flexibility. You can move stuff to this one because now it does this better, or I can move it to this one because this one does that better. It gives you that choice, and I'm not going to say eliminate lock-in, but it's the basis of you always want to be using the best tool for your business, and this is what gives you that flexibility to do that, right?
Yeah, and the one other thing I guess that's worth asking about is costs, right? How does this, everybody cares about how much things cost. How does something like ONTAP Cloud help customers and businesses manage costs?
I think there's a couple of ways. One of the things is the native, ONTAP features around dedupe, compression, but also cloning and those type of things. And also to some extent, and again, we'll touch on Cloud Volumes around, sort of a guaranteed performance. And I think that's the trick, right, is that if I natively copy stuff, I'm paying twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, right? And there's a cost time associated with that as well. How long does that take? If you can do things like cloning, if you can do things like dedupe and compression natively, it means that my overall costs are reduced. It means that my time to market, all that sort of stuff. And, they might be more businessy terms, but that's what it's really about. It's about using that efficiently. Provision, 5 terabytes, but actually use 100. That's pretty cool, right? And I'm going to save a lot of money.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess one of my favorite things about it is that if it's ONTAP, and I love ONTAP, hope you guys love ONTAP too, it's the same operating system, so there's no retraining. You don't need to learn how new things work in a different environment, whether you're in Azure, whether you're in AWS, whether you're in, whether we're going into GCP with Cloud Volumes as well. I think that's really a huge unspoken benefit, that skills, the transfer between all those environments.
And if anyone on the call, said, oh, well, that sounds too good, I encourage you to go and do the trials. It really is simple. When we say it's 5 or 6 clicks, it really, really is. Particularly if you are familiar with ONTAP, adding in a on-prem system to a ONTAP cloud system and starting to do this stuff, it's a really, really simple and easy. And if you're afraid, just go and have a look, have a play, sign up for the trial, and you'll just see how easy it can be.
So there's a bit of an ONTAP cloud overview there. I guess we talked about what it does and how people are using it. Are there alternatives that, your customers or people you've seen, what would they do if we didn't have the ability to do cloning like we can in ONTAP Cloud?
Look, from my experience, it's actually pretty crude, right? And it really is about, spinning up millions of different environments that just, the cost profile, it's really not feasible, for some of these guys. It costs so much. So I guess the thing is, it's just going back to the traditional ways of copying data around the place. And it's one of those things that it's almost, you need it if you're going to do these things. If you're going to do development, if you're going to do those type of things, you need that cloning.
So Cloud Volumes, you touched on it. I'm excited about it. What is it?
Cloud Volumes, in simple terms, or in my simple terms anyhow, is about enterprise-grade cloud storage, right? It's about taking the enterprise features and functions that we need and then putting them into a cloud or making them cloud consumable.
So let's talk about enterprise a little bit.
Yeah.
So we know the cloud is, public cloud, hyperscaler cloud is known for how easily you can just go in there as a dev or as a sysadmin, swipe your credit card and get a VM or get some storage. Why is that not what businesses, or why do businesses need enterprise-grade services and stuff like that?
So to an extent, they can still do that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that, probably 80% of the workloads we have out there, that sort of approach of I'll just spin something up works. But for enterprise, and enterprise in particular, they have expectations around compliance, performance, a whole bunch of those key attributes that are non-negotiables.
Encryption
right?
And things like
Everything,
that, right?
That's right. If you have a look at the things on the screen at the moment, there's probably not too many things there that enterprise customers, they just expect, right? So I guess what it is that, moving to the cloud, 80% of those workloads can go very simply. The last 20%, Cloud Volumes is a great way of being able to move some of those more cumbersome workloads. The other thing with that is those workloads that are the hardest to move are usually the most valuable. Right, so the thing is you want to get those across. You want to make sure that they work. And the thing is, the performance factor, I think we'll see when you play around with Cloud Volumes, the performance will be exponentially better than other alternatives that you have. So another exciting thing, we mentioned it before, was that could I not do machine learning off a Cloud Volumes volume because of the performance, right? It's going to be fast, it's going to be efficient, it's going to be all those things that you need for those environments. So it's super cool.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing there is that these are the cases that for existing applications where, like you said, they haven't moved to the cloud yet because they are too hard to move, because they have that history and that requirement, that expectation from the business that they're always going to be, that level of performance, and we're not sure how are we going to do that if we need to move that into maybe a new provider, a new cloud, new IaaS platform. And on the opposite side is around all the new stuff, all the analytics, all of the machine learning, the scale that you get from hyperscale, all the really, really cool things that those cloud vendors are bringing out every day. I think that the latest I heard was around quantum computing and being able to buy quantum computing per qubit per minute. So I think it's amazing. That's the sort of workloads that are going to need things like really high performance or like really great.
Even core database platforms, running SQL, it just means that if you've got a single instance, you need it to run fast. That's just the way it is. It runs your reporting system, it runs your accounting system, whatever it's going to run, you want it to run fast because that's your competitive advantage sometimes, right? So, I don't really condone the whole lift and shift approach, but the thing is sometimes you need it there before you can make it better. You need it to be there before you can start, disassembling some of this stuff and putting it into, better places. So I think that, Cloud Volumes is key for being able to do that.
Yeah, so I'll play this video. We keep chatting about it. This is available on YouTube, so the link will come up in case you miss it. But basically, this is going through an actual Cloud Volumes provisioning exercise, I think, in AWS. I guess that's the thing to ask as well, Snuffy, is Cloud Volumes going to be available? Firstly, is it going to be available in multiple hyperscalers?
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan, right? Off the bat, we've got AWS, Azure, and Google. Or effectively, they're the target ones, right? We'll probably do other ones as well, but they're the key ones because that's where the majority of our customers are. So we will target those first. And again, we want to try to make sure that that's as agnostic as possible, right? So that we're providing the same level of service in each one of those hyperscalers to again give our customers that choice. So that's the plan.
Yeah, and in terms of flexibility, is that am I locked in? If I've bought a certain amount of capacity in Cloud Volumes, can I change that? Can I grow it, shrink it?
And I think this demonstration shows exactly that, right? I mean, because it is ONTAP, because it is flexible, and because we're going to be using effectively virtual volumes, all that sort of fun stuff that I can just grow them and shrink them, and that's one of the keys that we have to do, right? Is if we're going to be cloud-like, we need to be cloud-like, so we need to be able to provide that elasticity that we currently have around some of those cloud platforms.
Yeah, so bringing some of that elasticity to the enterprise grade. the enterprise-grade features to the cloud, but also around the scale of the cloud and bringing that back to what you traditionally know as storage.
And I think that's important too. Performance at scale is hard. Right, so I think where a lot of this stuff's going to come into play is when we do get to really large volumes. I think that when you have small volumes, they're quite easy to make them perform well. When you get to really large data set sizes, it's really hard to make them fast. And I think Cloud Volumes is going to be one of those things that's going to help with customers around HPC or Hadoop or whatever, where they're very large data sets and they have to run really, really fast. It's usually one or the other, right? So,
yeah, speaking of data sets, I guess how do you see customers? I mean, obviously cloud. Actually, I'll jump into a different question first. Cloud Volumes availability, because I know that's going to come up. When is it going to be available? Sorry, I've put you on the spot there, haven't I?
You have, but I think that's okay. I think the plan, and Phoebe, you probably know better than I do anyhow, I think it's probably going to be Azure first and sooner than later, and then moving into AWS next year. I think that's the plan. So
there's, I know there are preview links, public and private previews for all of the cloud providers at the moment. So GCP was just announced last week. So if you are interested in trying it out, I know there are links. We'll put them in the show notes as well. And obviously, this one that we're looking at right now is in AWS. And I guess here's the question: how would they use a Cloud Volume? What's an approach? What would be the mechanism for accessing that Cloud Volume? I think we're looking at that right now.
Yeah, I think that's it. So NFS is probably the easiest one and will be available from day one. There'll be CIFS and also iSCSI, I believe, added further down the track, so that's probably a little bit further. But either way, it's about using those traditional NAS services to be able to connect to it. So we can see here it's using NFS, mounting a volume and then copying files and actually showing how fast it can be. So it's pretty simple in the way that I run up my operating system. I then enable my NFS connector or whatnot to point to that IP address, and then you can start consuming those services like you'd expect if it was on an on-prem system, as an example.
Yeah, so there we go. Just copied. What is that? A gigabyte with 118 megabytes per second.
Yeah.
So that's pretty quick for a file copy. And I guess the other question is, how would I migrate data or transfer data into Cloud Volumes from my whatever I've got running at the moment?
I think the simplest way would be through CloudSync. So CloudSync is another one of our services. We'll cover it off, and actually at the end of this particular demonstration, it goes into it. But it's a pretty cool piece of technology. It has a gateway. That gateway you effectively connect up to a source and destination, whether that be file or object on either side, and then you can sync that data in and out. And that's probably the fastest way of being able to do that. Of course, you could just copy stuff across, but really probably CloudSync is the most efficient way of being able to do both those transfers in and out of Cloud Volumes.
Yep, cool. So this demo, if you've been following along, I think he's just about to sync a copy of data and set up a relationship so that it's actually going to keep that replicated. So that'd be a really good use case, I guess, if I had some data that was being produced on-premise that I need to then run some tasks against.
Love it. I mean, think about it. Even if it was something like IoT devices that were dumping something down to a file share on-prem, I could sync that up. I could do some analytics over those particular workloads. I could run reports. I could do whatever, and then effectively sync that back out again and get those results. So I think those sort of use cases of where you don't want the data to live there all the time for whatever reason, that would be a use case where you could move it in and out.
Okay. I guess this is a question that came in through the chat. If I had storage connected to one cloud provider and I needed to access it from another cloud provider, how would you do that? Well, the question is, how would I reconnect that without copying data?
So there's a couple of ways. So one of the things is most most of the cloud providers or the data center providers these days offer some sort of cloud aggregation piece, right? Whether it's a Megaport, whether it's a cloud exchange or whatever, right? We can do that. And because these are IP protocols, fundamentally I can connect up. As long as I can see an IP, I should be able to connect to it. So the thing is I can replicate, and replicate will mean that I do have two sets of that data. That's just the way of replication. But that's not necessarily a bad thing either. That could be your backup. You could back up one to the other, but still use those data sets in both of those environments. So, but you could, via IP, quite simply connect up from, you know, an Azure box into something that was running in AWS. Would it be fast? Maybe not. Would it meet my latency requirements? Maybe not. But we do see some really low latency with these things, so it really depends on the plumbing. But from a configuration perspective, this is tried and proven. We've been doing NetApp private storage for some time now, and we had to meet all those sort of challenges around BGP peering and, you know, prepending and all that sort of fun stuff that we have to do. So we do have TRs on that as well, so technical reports and references on how to do that. So it may not be ideal, but the basis of it is that capability is there, and again, it probably gives you some extra benefits around things like DR and those type of, you know, requirements backup.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that customers are aware of, something like egress costs.
Yes.
Right, so that would be something to factor in. Again, coming back to cost, is that total cost of running in the cloud when you are transferring that data around. It's not just around how quickly it can be available, but also how much it will cost you moving it between those cloud providers or accessing it. So definitely connecting them up will be interesting architectures.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even if you have a look at the NetApp private storage stuff and what we do there, having the storage close to the cloud, you know, in doing that, what we can do is we can have one set of the data outside of any one cloud connecting. So I guess they're probably the options is, if I want to be 100% native in the cloud, I'm going to have to copy data around really to make it effective. But if I did something like NetApp private storage with direct connects or express route, then I can actually have one set of the data, which makes it really, really interesting if I had SQL clusters where I could potentially have one node in one cloud and one in the other, and they fail across. So these are some of the advanced concepts we're working with customers around to enable exactly that.
Yeah, and you actually have a customer who's done that, haven't you?
I do. I've got the best customers in the world, and they often ask me to do silly things, but it does work, and it works well, and it gives them capability which no one else does, right? No one else can do this stuff like we do, and that's the way it's seen. So, you know, I love doing this stuff because we get to do new things and sort of rewrite history as we go along. Okay.
I'm going to dive into SaaS Backup. What does SaaS stand for again? Something as a service?
Nothing as a service,
Nothing as a service. You will rock up to your door with a pizza. No, software as a service backup. We all know at software as a service, the most popular, I would say, at the moment is Office 365. We use it ourselves here, and a lot of companies have moved there. What does SaaS Backup do, and why is it so cool?
So, one of the things I think, again, is this is really for the enterprise, and the reason I say that is it's the same thing, is my enterprises are going to have particular compliance requirements that are above and beyond what a normal SaaS provider is going to give me. Now, that's not necessarily always the case, but the thing is if I need long-term archive and retention of a mailbox that I need to keep for 7 years or whatnot, am I going to have that natively in a SaaS provider? I may not. I may, but I may not. The whole basis of this is, you know, using the APIs from those SaaS providers and being able to copy that data and the index information around that data, so that then I can either protect that, or what I can do is I can use that data again where I can start to recover stuff or whatever. So that's really what it's about. SaaS Backup is taking the data or the services that the software as a service provider is offering you, taking that data and protecting it in a way which is more specific to your particular requirements. You know, is it about that, you know, audit hold? Is it about I need to get a file back from 7 years ago because it was part of an engineering company plan for a bridge and the bridge fell down, or any of those type of things. So it's an extra layer of I guess, governance and compliance on top of what those SaaS providers provide natively.
And so from a SaaS provider perspective, we talked about, I think Office 365 is the most popular. What else is coming? What else what other kind of SaaS backup can we offer?
Well, there's Salesforce, which is probably a key one as well. I know there's discussions on others as well, but you know, it's really about working with those guys to expose the APIs that we can consume, right? Once we can do that, then really once we have that data, and it's into our ecosystem, then we can start to, you know, push that to you know, an object store and push it back on-prem if you wanted to, or whatever. So. And
with SaaS backup, do I need to install anything? How does the components kind of work?
Well, and I guess that's the key, right? Is you know, the actual dashboard, if you like, takes care of all that stuff for you. So, you know, I give it my credentials so I can go in, and then I can drive that process. I can back those things up, and then I can push them into an object store. That's where we are today, but that's all within the service itself and within the console.
So let's have a look at one of those, that console that you just mentioned. So I think this one's a restore of a, well, I know this is a restore of a SharePoint file.
Yeah.
So what are the services out of Office 365 that we currently back up? And it's all through the same console, right?
Correct. And you'll see this at the moment, right? So right there, you'll see that that there's all those services that you would expect there, right? So what happens is that when we can go through, and it understands it. The console knows about the data, knows where the data is. In this demonstration, it's pretty straightforward. I've got a file, it's an image, I've deleted that, or I'm deleting that, or I've moved it, or I just want to recover it. Well, then I can do that, right? So, you know, pretty straightforward. You see it's GUI driven. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, to be honest. It's pretty straightforward, but that's what you would expect, right? I've got a file, I've deleted it. Where was it? Where do you want me to put it back? And that's really
basically what restore is, right?
It is, and it really is.
It shouldn't be that complicated.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, in the past, you know, there might have been CLIs and all sorts of fun stuff. This is easy because it should be easy. I know that file's there. Tell me where you want it to go, and I'll go and put it there. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and so when we do, I guess when they add new things to SaaS Backup, how easily can we start using them? So let's say there's a new feature that we want to release, or maybe it's a new backup product, or a new SaaS product that we're going to add to this suite. How easily can I start using that?
Well, look, you'll see it through Cloud Control, and what will happen, Cloud Central, and what will happen is, you know, similar to the way that we've become accustomed to the way cloud providers provide new services, it's just there to use, right? Every couple of weeks, the software will be updated anyhow, and then those features will come available, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there'll be some information about it, surely, but it's not like you're going to have to reinstall something or do something new. The services will be there. It'll be another tab, it'll be another button, it'll be something that you can just start to consume as part of, you know, subscribing to that service. Yeah,
so, I mean, you said there's nothing to install. Is that the case with Cloud Central, with SaaS Backup?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, once you go in and you log in, the console itself asks you the credentials, the information that you need, and then as a result, it's doing that heavy lifting for you. You know, it's going and talking to the APIs, it's copying the data down to your target, it's doing that for you.
Cool. Yeah, I see a lot of these. We're seeing a lot of the restores here. Again, these slides of this demo will be sent out, and I'm just conscious of time and getting through some of the questions. Actually, I do have a question about this, about Office 365 Backup. Normally when I back something up in my data center, I'm backing it up to maybe another storage array, maybe to a tape library. I know there are S3 connectors out there. Where does SaaS Backup actually put the backup?
I think that's probably the coolest thing, right, is that you can nominate whether you want it in an object store, within Azure, within AWS, or even on-prem, right? It's entirely up to you, and I think that's a super cool thing. I'm backing up my Office 365 into AWS, right? I mean, there's that whole cloud resiliency piece there, right there in one tool. So, you know, and then you go, okay, well, that's just object. What about if I wanted it in a file where you could use Cloud Sync then to take that back to an on-prem file share if you wanted to? You could throw that on a tape, yeah, whatever. But the basis of it is that, you know, it's object first, and then we can do whatever we want to. But you have the choice about the location of where that thing's going to be.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the enterprise and a typical enterprise saying, I need to have an off-site copy.
Yep.
You know, if you're running in the cloud, what is your off-site copy? Well, it might be another cloud, right? And it might be your on-premise data center as your off-site, and that's kind of cool too.
I think that's where we're going to go. I think you're just going to see multi-cloud. There won't be, you know, data centers anymore. It will be that the expectation is I have a primary location which is in one cloud provider and a secondary in the other cloud provider, and that's my replacement for my primary and secondary data center. You know, we're seeing some of that shift already. The secondary data center goes to the cloud. The next step is that the primary data center goes to another cloud, and then I'm at that multi-cloud piece, which is where I want to be. And you know, that's the thing. It's hybrid cloud today, but probably multi-cloud tomorrow.
Oh. So before I jump into those resources, I've got some questions. So Snuffy, what's your opinion on what skills, what scripting languages, what kind of automation are important for storage admins to fully utilize some of these cloud tools?
It's a good question, and you've got to be careful because you're asking my opinion now. But really, I mean, I would suggest that you go and find something that someone's already done and then leverage that, right? And the reason I say that is because there's pockets of it all over the place. You know, whether it's using PowerShell or whether it's using, you know, any of those other ones that are out there, it's about driving the APIs. It's about whatever you feel most comfortable about. There's no hard and fast rules, I don't think. Oftentimes what you'll see as well is if you do use some of our tools like Workflow Automator, you know, you can actually go and copy some of the code out. It actually gives you the JSON, all that sort of stuff. So that's probably my answer. It's probably not the answer you like, but I think it's a matter of jumping onto like GitHub as an example. There we go, yeah, and the pub, and using the snippets that already exist is probably the simplest answer. Don't reinvent the wheel. We're doing some amazing stuff with Ansible, and you know, using those sort of tool sets. So we've got a pretty strong ecosystem out there. There's lots of information if you search for it, but it's probably the thing that you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen myself, I've chatted to customers who have a team that uses Puppet and a team that uses Ansible, and they just integrate with each other to make the, you know, with what they're comfortable with in their ecosystem to work with the rest of their business, so then it all kind of comes together as an automated environment.
Yeah.
I definitely, I mean, I'm a sucker for easy. I like simple. So I love Python, I love Go. I think they're really great languages to learn, but I know there are people out there who swear by PowerShell and Java, and I like that the environments, the ecosystem that NetApp has created allows you to use the one that you're most comfortable with. If you are interested in any of those, we did do the Geek Out on automation 2 months ago, so we can send through some information, or you can go and look that one up, or reach out, and you know, we may do another Geek Out on that topic again because it's one of my pet favorites. I did also want to show the NetApp IO site, which is called the Pub. There's a Slack channel here that you can join, and you can actually have a chat to some of the guys who have written those Ansible modules, who are writing some of our open ecosystem tools. So you can always learn and ask them questions, and they're really, really smart guys. I have a question as well around cloud backup. I think that's around SaaS Backup. Can we talk a little bit about ingress and egress charges for bring your own storage when it comes to cloud backup, SaaS Backup? I think that's SaaS Backup. I'll have to find out. Because we also have a product called Cloud Backup. We're being a little bit confused.
Look, I guess it depends on how much data you've got, right, and how often you're going to pull these things out. You know, from out of, say, you know, Azure or Office 365, there's going to be some sort of egress fees there, but I guess it depends on how big that data set is. And what's more important to you, having a copy of the data or paying for that data coming out? So the thing is, you wouldn't pay for it if you pushed it into AWS because that's an ingress, right? So, so I think that you have to do those calculations, though. It is an important factor. It really, really is. When you look at some of these solutions and you talk about moving stuff out of the cloud, you do have to be aware of that. Usually it's a relatively small portion, but it is something you need to be aware of. And again, I guess the other thing is the frequency. How often do you want to do it? You know,
yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, definitely with restores. Hopefully you're not restoring your entire data set every single day, but that's definitely something you need to think about when you're starting to put your backup into different cloud providers.
For sure. I mean, I just helped one of my partners with a blog around backups, and I said, you know, that there's no point to backup if you can't restore, right? So, you know, you've got recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives. If you can't meet those, why back it up in the first place? Because if you don't get it back for 2 months' time and it costs you $1 million, what was the point?
Yeah. So I'm very conscious of time, and thank you all for the questions. I don't know if we have anything else. I have a couple of slides of what's coming up. The resources are all here. Obviously, this slide deck will come out to you via email. If you are interested in demoing Cloud Volumes or previewing Cloud Volumes, there is a link there to sign up. If you are interested in trying any of the products from Cloud Central, that's probably the place to go. There's also, there's definitely free trials. They're different durations for different products. We can help you out with that. Just reach out directly to me if you've got any questions. That would be, my email will be in one of these slides somewhere. And finally, there's a couple of reminders. There is the great cloud debate, public versus private, on the 22nd of May in Sydney, which is next Tuesday. I will be there with my NetApp shirt on and my NetApp ribbon. There's a link. It's free. Please come and support or ask me questions, ask me about anything in today's Geek Out. I will also be at Container Camp next week as well, which is on the 23rd to the 25th of May in Melbourne. If you are interested in containers at all, and that's the entire container ecosystem, whether it's Kubernetes or storage, whether it's around service management, security, it's all there. Do come down. Tickets are on sale. We don't run any of those, but we are sponsoring both of those events. And finally, there is one event that we are running, which is the Brisbane NetApp User Group. And Snuffy, you run this, so please tell me, what is the NetApp User Group? What do you guys do, and why should people go?
Look, it is a user group, right? It's for the users. It's for the operators. It's for like-minded people. And oftentimes our NetApp champions are there. I call them my NetApp ninjas.
Who's there this week?
James Redmond from Digital Sense.
Right.
So he's going to talk about some of their environments, some of their performance challenges, and things that they learn along the way, which is really, really interesting. It's not the sales guys, it's only for technical people, and we just share, right? The whole point of it is come along, learn something, come with an open mind, you know, share, and hopefully get something out of it. So,
and eat some food and drink
pizza and beer is mandatory. It's once a month, it's the last Friday, usually the last Friday of every month. So if you're in Brizzy and you're interested, you want to learn something or you've got something to share, please come along. So 25th of May at the NetApp office. If you don't know where it is, just ping us and we can let you know, but I'd love to see you guys there.
Yeah, it's on that Meetup link if you go to the Meetup site. And if you're interested in something like that in another state, reach out, because we do run nugs in other places. And I'd love to see you there and have a chat and get some real feedback from Geek Out face-to-face. The next Geek Out is in June. I don't have the date yet, but it will come out to you via email. We are talking about Fabric Pool. When Fabric Pool is a NetApp technology that's part of ONTAP that allows, well, it actually does auto tiering between flash disk or flash
and object,
which is really cool. We'll do some actual live demos of that, and I promise it will actually be in June this time. We've got our act together in terms of timing. And finally, there's one more thing. I've got 1 minute. There is a survey when you leave the WebEx. a survey browser or a browser will pop up with a survey. If you could please fill that in. I love hearing from you all. Tell me I'm talking too much or not enough, and we will adjust for next time. So thank you. We will close out now. If you've got any other questions, drop them in an email to the Geek Out team, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Snuffy.